Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. This is from a webinar that we did for a cohort launch for House for Community. This is our house church / house community cohort. So if you're interested in that, please go over to onekh.org. And so if you're interested in the distinctives of how we think about house church, house community, we spent the last 15 plus years really trying things, some things that didn't work, making lots of mistakes, finding lots of cool ways that we could express this kind of church in our culture today in the West. And so we want to share that with you guys in this two-parter. The second one is the top 10 distinctives of our House for Community blueprints.
Hey friends, welcome to the 1000 Houses podcast, where we encourage and equip households to make disciples in and through the home. Every episode, you'll hear interviews, teachings, and conversations around what it looks like to turn your home into a hub for mission, community, and discipleship. If you'd like to learn more about what entering into a season of coaching might look like for you and your household, visit onekh.org for more info. Let's jump into today's episode.
These are the things that makes this particular training unique. So we've been through lots of house church trainings. I've followed the Tampa Bay Underground, the Kansas City Underground. We spent time learning from Francis Chan. We spent a lot of time studying with Frank Viola, with Wolfgang Simpson. Back in the early 2000s, Caesar Kalinowski had a whole season with Caesar. I love studying a lot of these different models. Some of these things on this list you'll only find in our coaching, not because that they're better. They're just distinctive. There's things that are different about each of these. And I've learned so much. And some of these things we have taken from others, and we're like, wow, that's so helpful. We're going to adopt that as well. These things are pretty specific and will help you guys understand, is this cohort the right one for me? There's so many good ones out there that are bubbling up now. Thank God. Like I said, that there are some good coaching, but these are things unique about House for Community. So we spent a lot of time respecting the unique role of the hosting household. I mentioned that this is a big deal for us. I don't really see this very clearly in other distinctives. A lot of this comes from, some of you guys are familiar with our ministry of family teams. Part of how family teams actually started was we spent a lot of time trying to plant house churches with modern Western families. And they just kept crumbling under the weight because they weren't really built to withstand that level of leadership, productivity as a team. And so we started family teams really with the dream that someday these first century households would reemerge. And we are starting to see that happen. So we do rely a lot on that kind of family training, that you start to think about family like a team, that the husband and wife are a really important dynamic team that needs to be able to and know how to work together well. But this is something we spend a lot of time on. We care a lot about, probably more than any other group that I've seen. We design everything around maximizing sustainability. I've said a lot of things already about the importance of sustainability. This is really tough to do this for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And if we present a model that burns everybody out, within 3 or 4 years, then it's just not going to work. Like, we have to make a model that's sustainable, even in our context. Even if you are training people to become more like households or family teams, how do we make this really sustainable? So we spent a lot of time thinking about this question. Do you need respite? Do you need to meet less often, even though you kind of feel like you should meet, but it's going to burn you out? These are things we're constantly thinking about, and we're going to talk a lot about in this cohort. We find all the first principles for the how of the gathering of the community from 1 Corinthians 10 through 14. Like I said, it's very unique in the New Testament because it is prescriptively describing how to do church. And one of the things I was taught in seminary, and that is said often in theological circles, is there is no prescriptive way to do church in the New Testament. And by that, they oftentimes mean that in the book of Acts, when it talks about them meeting in homes, it's not really prescriptive, it's just descriptive. In other words, it's not saying thou shalt meet in homes. It's just saying they met in homes. And so this argument is the reason why 95+% of Christians in the West meet in large worship centers as opposed to homes. And the thing that oftentimes is missing from that discussion is 1 Corinthians 10 through 14. There are so many clear directives given to how and these are commands Paul is giving to a specific church. This is how you are to gather. This is what you are to do. That these are totally ignored because you can't do the things that Paul is describing here at massive scale. And so we just ignore these chapters. It's so remarkable to me how much we ignore the clearest passages in the New Testament about how to do church. The Holy Spirit felt it was necessary to preserve in the New Testament such a clear blueprint for how they did it. Let's actually obey it. Let's actually pay attention to it. And so that's something we're going to do in this cohort. One of the things you'll find happens when you study deeply a passage like 1 Corinthians 12, for example, that describes the importance of all the gifts of the body, is that one of the things that we design a gathering of the body to do is to release the largest number of gifts to build up the body. So when you walk into a worship services are extremely effective at releasing the gift of worship, at releasing the gift of teaching, but there's all kinds of other gifts that have to be completely silent in order for that particular kind of expression to really survive and be helpful, because they don't know how to release, 10, 15, 20 other gifts. They just sit there silent. That's a tragedy. Like, I want to see all the gifts build up the body. And so it's great to be able to go to a worship service and experience somebody's gift of teaching or gift of worship leading. But man, when you walk into a living room and really get built up by somebody's gift of exhortation, somebody's gift of service, somebody's gift of mercy, somebody's gift of prophecy, like, these are so powerful. It'll change everything. And then to actually walk in and look around the room after a gathering and say, every single gift in this room was released. I've seen that happen. That is unbelievable. Such a beautiful thing. That's what we want to see happen. One of the things that we'll do in House for Communities, we'll always strive for unity with all the expressions of the church. Again, I don't think you can encapsulate everything the church needs to be in a house church model. And so I'm constantly trying to find ways to partner with other expressions of the church. Our whole house church worships with 100 plus others every other month. There's things you can experience in that larger gathering that I want everyone in my community to experience. We just don't do it every week, right? A lot of the problems I have with the traditional church model isn't that there's something almost sinful about what they're doing. My biggest problem is it's just overemphasizing certain gifts or certain elements of church and underemphasizing others. And the actual way, what they're overemphasizing doesn't seem to be what's overemphasized in the New Testament. And what they're underemphasizing seems to be the things that the New Testament's really emphasizing. But we strive to be united with other expressions of the church. And if there are ways for us to collaborate on larger initiatives across the city, or that we can participate in one another's, what kind of the distinctives that each of our expressions have, then great. Let's try to figure that out. I love those stories. One of the things that we want to do is model accountability to elders or city fathers. So one of the biggest critiques of the house church movement is people look at it, kind of cross their arms and say, who are you accountable to? Like, you're basically the Pope and the elder board and like you and your wife. And that, that's an important criticism. How do we handle that? Well, the way we handle that is that the way that the New Testament was governed was through these elders, and these elders were not in house churches. They were at the city level. They weren't in branded worship services either. They were city churches. We know that for sure. In the very first chapter of Titus, Paul actually commands Titus to go to every city that they had been at and appoint elders, not go to every house church and appoint elders, not to go to every worship service and appoint elders. He said, go to every city and appoint elders. And that was not an unusual thing at all. Every city, every village in that time in history and for thousands of years before that were governed by city fathers. You see this in the book of Ruth, 2,000 years earlier. You see this whole city of Bethlehem being governed by a group of elders that sat at the city gate. We need to be submitting ourselves to city elders. And so the problem is, where do you find those guys? Like, how do you find elders who are governing the city? That they don't exist anymore. And if they exist, they usually are governing a particular worship service expression. They're not necessarily, don't even see themselves as city fathers. So one way that we really encourage you guys to do this over the course of the 6 months is that if you launch a house church, we encourage you to think of it 2 or 3 city fathers that you would be willing to, if all 2 or 3 of them agreed and said, hey, you need to stop teaching that you would reflexively submit to what they say as a group. These are people that are respected, not just by you, but by other people for their spiritual maturity. They meet the requirements of elders that are described in the New Testament. You can begin to restore the city elders by simply acknowledging that there does exist some city fathers in your city, and they should probably be respected, and they can kind of have this oversight role. So I tell people in our house church, look, here are the city fathers that I reflexively submit to as a group. If you ever see me doing anything that you feel like is out of line, teaching something, and you tell me and I disagree or I won't listen, you go to them and they will start an investigation, figure out if I'm in sin, figure out if there's something I'm teaching that's wrong. And if they tell me that they, as a group, disagree with me and believe that I should stop, and I disagree with them, I will submit to them, not myself. Like, that protects everyone in my house church and everyone that listens to me. And so I believe it's important to be in submission to the city elders, to city fathers. But this is a hard thing to figure out, given the fact that we've somehow no longer practiced this form of government. But I think you start to recreate it in your city. And we've tried to do that here in Cincinnati. All right. Focuses the community on the mission to multiply disciple makers. So this is a distinctive I've mentioned. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about why do church? Like, it's really important for us to think about this mission to multiply disciple makers. And this leads us to a clear model for multiplication. So many house churches have no multiplication model. They don't know who would lead another one. They don't understand what the purpose is. We've spent 3 or 4 years building this tight community, and now you want us to divorce and cut it in half? No, that's not a good model for multiplication. There's a different model. There's a model that has to do with multi-generational disciple making, where you start to see that there is a clear set of spiritual children and grandchildren beginning to coalesce around a family within your house church that's not that hosting family. And that's the natural way that families multiply. And I think house churches multiply the same way families do. So we'll talk to you guys about how that works. And then we really prioritize the depth of relationship and dynamic interdependence. So you see that in 1 Corinthians 12, of course, describes the importance of dynamic interdependence in the body. But the reason why Paul put 1 Corinthians 13, the famous love chapter, love is patient, love is kind, he didn't put that in a book about marriage or about how to conduct a wedding ceremony. He put that in the middle of 1 Corinthians 10 through 14, because it's in the middle of describing how a body gathers. And so we want to make sure that what is happening in the context of this community is that we're learning to love each other, especially when it's hard, especially when we get in each other's nerves or when we have to forgive each other. And so this interdependence creates a certain kind of love. And the love itself is one of the ends or reasons for the existence of the small church expression, the household church expression. So we want to experience that and prioritize that. It's a big deal. And last one here is this provides an ongoing connection. So if you guys, after 6 months of spending or launching a house church with this blueprint, and this is a place where you will now have a whole tribe that you can work with and continue to journey with through becoming a part of future cohorts, through becoming a coach with House for Community and 1KH, to becoming a city partner, which are those households who are trying to really expand the coaching of 1KH in their city so that we can see more disciple making happen, more evangelism through households, and more communities beginning to develop our house churches because of the maturity of these households. So, all right, those are the 10 distinctives. That gives you guys a flavor. This is what we're going to talk about. I mentioned that the cohort is for the launchers, the level uppers, and the learners. And we want to encourage, I want to know which one you are if you're going to join the cohort. And there'll be times where I'll be saying, hey, I need to just pause and say, do any of the launchers have a question? If we have too many people or too many questions, we're just going to have to prioritize that group a little bit more. But anyone in this group, any of these three are very much invited and encouraged to be a part of the cohort. So what's involved in House for Community? There's about an hour or two of learning you're going to have to do every week. There's assignments. You're going to go through some videos. I'll show you in a second a syllabus you're going to get that'll help you walk through all of the videos and also give you a place to journal through what you're learning from each one. We're going to do a coaching call every other Tuesday from 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. There's no cost to this coaching. It's a very intense coaching, requires a lot from us and our team. The way that we handle payment for this and we make this sustainable for us financially is we wait until people sign up for the cohort. They've experienced a lot of benefit from it. And after a couple of months, during a follow-up call that we do with everyone who is in one of our coaching cohorts, we want to hear from you. We want to get some good feedback from you. We want to answer any questions you have about 1KH. And at the end of that conversation, we always give you an opportunity to become a contributor to the course. And we'll talk to you guys about where those resources go and how that can help multiply and bless our ministry. And so, but there's no cost to signing up for 1KH or for House for Community. And then 6 months is what you're committing to. So I really want you guys, if you apply and decide to come be part of it, to really stick it out for the 6 months, to come to all the Tuesdays. If there's something that you can't come to, just let me or Caleb, especially Caleb, know. We don't like it when people join and drop out. There's only one exception to that. There's one kind of dropout that we always like. And that is a dropout that decides to move from House for Community to a different cohort, life on life discipleship. Sometimes people are in a House for Community cohort and we're about to launch a life on life discipleship cohort. And they're like, you know what? I think it's going to be a few more months before we're going to start anything with regards to a community, but I need to learn how to make disciples. If you come to that conclusion, then you want to transfer over to, and those are much shorter cohorts, those life on life, but they're very intense. But I love, that's kind of often in the sequence of 1KH. Most people start with life on life discipleship. And so if you don't have a disciple making blueprint that you're like, I've never made a disciple, I don't really know how to make disciples that make disciples, we would love to coach you how to do that. We have a very effective blueprint for how to coach you how to make disciples who multiply disciples, how to launch a whole disciple making movement in your city. So any point you can double dip. If you've got the time, you can go through both cohorts. I would love that. You can pause this one and go to that one. Those are all options for you. Or you can just stick out this one, which is of course what we'd expect from most people who sign up for this one. But just so you guys know, that open door is always there to prioritize your disciple making training. So how do you join? You can apply at 1kh.org. You just click on House for Community. It's also, you can also go straight to the URL/community coaching. I want to show you guys real quick the syllabus. This is our next level of coaching. So what you'll get is a 20-page syllabus if you join. So the beginning of it sounds like a lot, but like I said, it's maybe an hour or two a week, mostly watching videos and kind of reflecting on those. Before you come to the second meeting, you'll have watched these 3 videos. So total about 40 minutes of content. And then if you click on any of these, they zip you down to this fun little table here. So this is the assignment that you will hear at the end of that video. And what we want you to do is just take some time and journal away inside of this little box here. Now, if you don't like to journal away inside of a Google Doc, you're welcome to do that on a piece of paper or a journal or whatever. We just ask that you complete this. Now, we love it when you do it in this so we can see what you're writing. Caleb's going to be checking these, and you're going to make a copy of this Google Doc, give us access to it. And we're going to just be checking to make sure that number one, you're doing your assignments, and number two, that we're tracking with what you're learning. And there's anything that we want to make sure we're doing a good job as your coaches. So that's a very important part of this process. So that is the syllabus side of this thing. So 6 months, you'll learn so much. You will be inundated with information. There's deep theology. There's all kinds of tactics and strategies. We're trying to figure out all the things you would need, particularly as a hosting family, to be able to have a healthy house church expression come out of this 6-month experience. That's our goal. And we're going to keep trying to level this up over time. So that is the presentation part of this. April, Brent, you guys want to chime in? We're going to do a Q&A here in a second. You guys are welcome to hang out for as long as you want. We can chat for a while, or if you need to go, that's fine. Just if you want to make your way over to 1KH and sign up, if you've decided to do that, that's all you have to do. That's the next step. We'll take out a look at your application and you will jump into the cohort that starts in a little under 2 weeks, right? Tuesday. Brent, where were you?
Yeah, no, I thought that was great. Just very excited about this. I can't wait to see the fruit that comes out of people that join this group.
Yeah. Super good. April, anything that you got to correct? Because that was a lot of me talking.
No, you did a pretty good job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you did. I just agree with like all the things he said, that I was right there with them, with all those things we've learned through the years and things we've tried and ways we've learned. And so praise God, it would be so great if someone could, benefit from those things that we've tried. And I do agree with like, not everyone can handle the experiments. And so let the people who can handle the experiments try them and then kind of like report back with the findings. And so I think that's kind of what that list was. Just took us 20 years to make it.
That's right. Our loss is your gain, guys.
Well, friends, thanks for listening to today's episode. If you'd like to learn more about 1,000 Houses or discover what a season of coaching might look like for you and your household, visit 1kh.org. We'll see you for the next episode.